Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, brought to you by our incredible local friends in Waggle Golf, 9 Mile Brewing, and Barrel Theory Beer Company. With me, as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, bringing you all your insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gopher hockey. Joe, big weekend for both of us. We got a couple of first Wild game certificates. How'd things go for you guys?
Well, I was impressed that our little one made it through the whole game. We were hoping for a period, maybe second intermission. But I know they don't. There's probably more for us than it is for the kids at this point, how young they are. But it's still cool to see our son, almost 9 months old now, kind of looking at all the lights and the screens and music. So headphones helped, and he had a nap somewhere in there, second period range, but it was cool to get, like the certificate and the stick, which he uses a teether. So it's very useful, multi-purpose kind of thing. But yeah, just a fun experience to have. Can look back at his, when he's older and he's playing junior hockey and be like, oh, your first ever game was with Sidney Crosby and Marc-Andre Fleury and all that stuff. So one for like the baby book for sure.
Yeah, that is very specifically why I picked this game too. Obviously being a Penguins guy, but last chance to see Fleury play the Penguins, and of course Malkin gets a goal, Crosby gets two. But yeah, same for us. Like it's definitely a little bit more for us, but he's a little bit older. Logan's 14 months, and he like the lights and just the bright white ice. Like he was pretty dialed. But he was like friendly as can be. We were like passing him to the people next to us because he was reaching to them and wanted to hang out with them. It was different. And that stick they give away, my shins are very much not safe anymore because he's not using it as a teether. He flails that thing around. So baby steps. We're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm amazing what it'll be like when he goes to his game next year, because Connor's a few months behind, obviously, Logan. So when he starts to be able to walk around and on his own. So we'll have to compare pictures back and forth to see, but definitely exciting to see him have that experience.
For sure. Less exciting. We'll just rip the Band-Aid off and get right into it. Gophers lose the 3-game series to Notre Dame. It didn't look good. And of course, the only game I went to was the one game that they kind of looked decent Saturday night. But man, you got to do a little bit of a gut check here. Our friends over at Gopher Puck Live said, honestly, can you imagine a much worse outcome for Minnesota than this one? Hughlin gets hurt, goalie questions, heart questions, like a month off before the tourney. It's not a good spot to be in. Bob said it multiple times in his post-game availability. Like, the sky's not falling. We will play again. But it's hard not to be worried if you're a fan, right? Like a lot of time off, and it didn't look great. Not a great last impression.
No, and like the sky isn't falling necessarily. It's not an elimination game, but I think it's a tough one to sit on for 3 weeks, right? There'll be a lot of pressure. There'll be a lot of questions. There'll be a lot of things going around. So I think it'll be a really big test for the leadership group on this team to pull things together to be like, hey, like a bad weekend. We've had a lot of great weekends this year, what we're capable of. The playoffs are different than the season in terms of things get tighter, and they have a lot of skill on this team. So they got to find a way to fight through some of the physicality and some of the tight space on the ice. So, but yeah, like you can't hide some of the goalie questions that you might have thought you didn't have earlier in the year. You can't hide the fact that they just lost to a team they shouldn't have lost to, regardless, based upon pure talent alone and what they had going for them. So, maybe that's the wake-up call that they needed. Maybe that's kind of the jolt that they needed. But that's if you're like Silver Linings playbook guy, that's your thought message. But this is going to be a hard one to sit on, knowing expectations for this program and this team, where to go into that first round weekend, it's going to be a whole lot of eyeballs on Minnesota and how they respond to this one.
Yeah, I mean, Nevers put it quite well, just saying this is their last lesson. Like, you cannot lose another game if you're going to win the championship. So the positive is it still looks like by pairwise they have a pretty good chance of taking down a 1 seed, which they very much need. But the real question, and we're going to kick it over here in a minute to an awesome sit down with the full goalie crew. But what do you do now? Because, obviously Souliere didn't have the game he would have liked on Friday. Saturday, Airey came in, made some very good timely saves. He even might have let in a couple that he'd tell you that he wasn't super happy about. And Sunday went the way it did. Like, where do things sit? Who is the goalie? Like, what do the next couple of weeks look like as they evaluate it? Like, is Bob going to go in there and tell them right now, hey, here's who's playing game 1? Or is this something that he hasn't even made a decision on?
Well, I mean, no one's really stolen the net, right? No one's really said. I mean, we thought Souliere would have been the guy. I thought that way up until recently, and maybe it's to Bob's purpose of like letting it play out and making them compete in practice and say who wants the net, right? And who wants to show me in the next 3 weeks that this is the guy I want to ride. Like I would be watching him and watching the players and being like, who's responsible in practice? Who's the guy who's mentally head above everybody else? Who's the guy who's grabbing hold of this? Because, goalies can be kind of weird creatures, but they're also a very important backbone of your team, and the team has to have confidence in you behind them. So I think if I were him, I would probably let a little bit play out and say, like, who wants it? Let's see who earns it the rest of the way here. There's going to be a lot of hard practices going into that stretch. So unless he has already had an idea in mind and wants to publicly support him and say, okay, this is our guy regardless of what happened, that's another way to go about it. But it's hard to go into a tournament with 2 goalies. You need to have one guy you want to ride.
Yeah, for sure. And I would have thought Souliere beforehand like you, but not going with him on Sunday was kind of indicative to me that maybe a decision hasn't been made. And Bob's not going into that game thinking they're going to lose, right? He's thinking, great, next weekend we reset, make another decision. But if Souliere is going to be your guy, you want to give him a chance to get that Friday off his back. You want to make sure that he got the last game in the off chance that you do lose the game. So I do think that it's up to question. I like both guys. I think both are absolutely capable and can be the backbone for this team to go on and contend. It's just no more mistakes. One flub, and that's all she wrote. But these are 2 guys that like support each other so strongly, as you'll all hear here in the interview coming up. Could not be more supportive of each other. Whoever ends up getting it, the other one is going to be riding with them through and through. Let's just send it over. We have here for you all a group interview with Liam Souliere, Nathan Airey, and Coach Brennan Poderzay. This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order. Live here at Mariucci with a bunch of goalies. We'll start there. We got Liam Souliere, we got Nathan Airey, and we got Brennan Poderzay. I got that right?
Yep.
Beautiful. Appreciate you guys taking the time here, sitting down. How are y'all doing?
Good, for sure.
Yeah?
Fresh off practice. Yeah. I'm just soaking it all in, being a part of this with these 2 young gentlemen.
I mean, was it a good practice, Coach?
Yeah, it was really good. Really good. Anytime you get out there and can do some goalie stuff at the beginning, it's always a great day.
So what's goalie stuff? Like, tell me doing goalie stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Well, we always talk about leading up to the weekend, what maybe tips, trends, tendencies that the other team looks to do or how they try to generate. And then ultimately these guys are so intelligent in their own position, what they want to do to work on or what they want to feel better on leading up to the weekend. So we put ourselves in the best chance possible for success.
So, I mean, what do you guys think? Going from one weekend to the next, like college hockey, it's just like so regimented. Is it more like trying to correct on things you didn't like from the previous weekend, or is it more focused on like, hey, here's who we're going to play next?
I don't know. I think the way I see it is there's certain things that you do in a weekend that works well, and then you kind of just try and focus on those things and make them even better. Just kind of like playing to your strength, like the same way that, like, I guess a forward, if the top of the circle is the area you want to hang out on, and you better be practicing the top of the circle area. Like, if me being at the top of my crease has been helping, I'm going to make sure that I'm at the top of my crease every time. So it's most just focusing on the things that are good and trying to replicate those as many times as possible.
Yeah, I mean, if we're playing a team that we know, goes to the net hard, then we'll work on screens and tips. That's something we've been kind of working on all year, I guess, right? And but if there's something we don't like, for example, like a drift in our stance from shots from the top or something like that, we'll try and correct that throughout the week so we don't have to deal with it in a game. So
Okay, nice. And I'm not going to direct this at one person because I need all of you to answer this, but we've only had one other goalie on the podcast before. Yes, for Wallstedt.
Oh, nice.
And he was pretty candid on his answer here, but I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel about the generalization that goalies are different? We'll put it that way.
Go ahead, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you got to be a little different. They're wiring it at your head. And, like, you kind of, like, for example, today, the best example I have is at practice today, we had, like, a drill where we moved the net up, and one of the players came in and shot it, and I saved it, like a normal spot, nothing crazy, and it just missed the padding, so it was like a stinger, and it started hurting, so I was, like, screaming, like, in pain, and I saw Bob at the corner of my eye, like, looking at me like, is he okay? And it's just like, yeah, I mean, like, this is just a part of the gig. Like, you just have, like, sometimes they hurt. And you just have
throwing your glove off yesterday.
Well, was it Rick DiPietro back however long now?
Yeah.
I don't even know how long it's been since that guy's been out of the league, but he was mic'd up for All-Star competition or whatever, and they're asking him, like, oh, so, like, does it hurt? He's like, yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time like a general fan would have known, like, oh wait, no, it actually hurts getting hit by these pucks.
Correct.
Well, I mean, we're pretty lucky with the gear we have now. I've had one of those old gloves when my Bantam coaches brought an old glove. I wouldn't use it. I was too scared of a puck. But I mean, well, the other day I got my bell rung pretty good. I got one of the bars snapped on my mask.
Yeah.
Oh dang.
Only a Jimmy Snuggerud
Jimmy
shot
Snuggerud,
can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
straight at my eye. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna frame that one though. But I mean, you got to be a little odd. I mean, who wants to stand in a net getting frozen piece of rubber shot at you? But teach their own, I guess.
Yeah. We're gonna get Jimmy to sign that somehow.
Sign the cage.
Yeah, something rather.
I mean, it's such an age-old rhetoric of goalies being weird. I think it's a personality. Yeah, just like they said, of course you are standing in front of shots, but I think ultimately what makes it such a unique position is you are the last line of defense. So you make a save, people love you. The puck goes in the net, you don't feel real good about yourself. So it's definitely a pressure-packed position, and it takes a unique person to be able to want to A, handle that, but then B, thrive in that. So, and these guys have done a tremendous job of both of it.
Who's under more pressure during those games? You guys or Mom?
Yeah, I mean, mom for sure. We're used to it. Mom's not really used to it. I remember, like, growing up as a kid, like, my mom used to always go, like, get it out, get it out, get it out. Like, and you could hear it from the stand. Like, I'm 12 years old. But, it's it's weird though. Like, you're so in the zone, like, focusing on the puck, like especially like 2-on-1s. The 2-on-1s developing, like, you hear the crowd kind of, like, developing everything, the noise, everything gets, like, louder and louder, and, like, you're kind of just, like, narrowing it down to the puck, and then you kind of just want to hear, especially if you're on the road, you want to hear the after, and if you know, you're at home, you want to hear the cheers after. That's kind of like once that save is made, that's kind of like when you realize that, oh, it was pretty tense. That was a pretty tense moment, but you try and stay in the zone.
Yeah, I don't like to use the word pressure. Every game's played the same. If I can go into a game and just understand that it's, just another game, or every shot's just another shot, I feel like that's sort of alleviated and takes the pressure off. But then at the same time, obviously there's, if you're playing in a Stanley Cup final, or for us, like in the playoffs and stuff like that, obviously that game means a lot more to not only the team, but the fans and everybody out there. So understanding the moment and the pressure that comes with it, but not letting it affect you in that moment, I think is a good way of looking at it. So in my family, there's a lot more pressure on the family, for sure. My dad paces, my grandpa paces, my aunt sticks her face in a blanket, and a whole bunch of stuff. So
These guys are forgetting this is why you see they work so well together. It's yin and yang. One is as cool as the other side of the pillow. The other one's wired a little bit tighter. The one person who feels the most pressure during the game is the goalie coach.
How can I make this about me?
I mean, no, that's the worst. It's terrible because, as they both just alluded to, when you're playing it's free. You've done all the work. The preparation is just letting it come effortlessly. But as a coach, now you sit back with your hands tied, and you hang on every save, you hang on every goal. You obviously want to make sure that you feel like you've put forth the best foot for these guys to have them prepared. And it's being a goalie parent, being a goalie girlfriend, fiance. It is a roller coaster. So it's much more difficult for everybody other than the goalie.
Yeah. And I would say also, like, talk about pressure, like, who else also has like a ton of pressure whenever there's a scoring chance? It's the shooter.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a right spot, like, I'm a firm believer that like a perfect goalie will always win above a perfect shot. Like, there's no such thing as like a perfect shot. Like, there's always something a goalie could have made or done to make that save.
Sure.
So it's
That's a great point.
If you're in the right spot, like, you're in the right spot. Like, you're making the save. No matter what the other guy has to either completely fake you out or pick a corner, but I feel like they have more pressure.
Yeah, theoretically, every puck is savable. I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like that. Okay, so we've established, we all agree, different. Goalies are different.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that develops like throughout being a goalie, or do you have to be different to even get into it? Like, how did you guys even get into being a goalie when you were younger?
Oh, my dad was a goalie. My grandpa was a goalie.
So you had no shot.
Yeah, my dad kind of forced it on me, but I'm glad he did. But I always have like that thought, like, I wonder like where I'd be if I just stuck to forward the whole time. Yeah. I was pretty good at both, like as a kid.
I see the hands out there. I would. That's funny that you say that. I could see you being an unbelievable forward.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's for another life, I guess. But, but yeah, I love being goalie.
That's for beer league. Save the knees.
Yeah, I mean, once I'm retiring, those pads are.
I'm with you.
Never getting put on.
Yeah, I didn't have anybody really play hockey, to be honest with you. Like, my dad played hockey growing up, but not really at a super high level. My grandpa was a good football player, but other than that, I just tossed the ball at myself when my parents couldn't shoot on me, and I'd yell at my dad to shoot in intermissions in hockey games on me at mini sticks, right? My mom would shoot on me outside, but never really came about in the family. Really the reason why I started was I was a backup, moved to St. Albert in third grade, grade 3 as we call it. And our goalie quit halfway through the year, and I was the backup. And I loved goalie way more. I was a horrible player. I was so bad.
I could see that.
I didn't want to take any penalties or anything like that. And yeah, he quit. I was the goalie the rest of the year, and that was that. I didn't want to get out, so yeah.
What about you, Pods? How'd you start?
It was same, really crazy being in northern Minnesota, which is supposedly supposed to be a hockey hotbed. My dad was a great basketball player, so I actually played. I didn't get into hockey until I was 8 or 9 years old. It was just by chance. The numbers were light. Everybody was getting an opportunity to play goalie, and I fell in love with the gear. Like, I loved the pressure. Same thing, the ooh, the ah, being able to have an impact on the game. It was just, that was one of the coolest parts for me, and it stuck. I think I gave up like 7 or 8 my first game, and I was like, I love this. Let's keep doing it. So,
yeah, we got to talk about the gear, right? Like, that is the coolest part of being a goalie. Mm-hmm. Some kids like want to play goalie because of the gear. Others, once they're in it, that's just like a fun little thing to dabble in. Like, how do you guys come up with the inspiration for how your pads are designed? Helmet, leg pads, whatever.
I mean, I'm a copycat. Like, I used to just, whatever Price was doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I was gonna figure out a way to fit my colors in the same way. Even like when I was younger, like I play on a team that had yellow, blue, and gray, and I just went the white Vaughn with the blue and the red.
Oh yeah,
like little lines.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm getting those. So I did that for a while, and then obviously Price is not playing anymore. So this year is Bobrovsky. Okay. I just took his design and put it into Minnesota gear, and his helmet. I've done
copycat.
Yeah,
I've done nice. My helmet is pretty much also a copycat of Bobrovsky's design. I've had it my freshman year at Penn State too. I did the same kind of design, but I just find someone that I think looks good, and I try and emulate that, really.
You and Weiser.
Yeah.
Same.
We do kind of look exactly the same.
You both went Bobrovsky helmets.
Yeah. And our pads kind of match up.
I mean, that's not a bad person to try to
emulate.
No,
he's
pretty good.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, now that he finally got the cup.
Yeah. Well, I think before that.
He was
And
okay,
there was a lot of reasons in his bank account before then that he was pretty happy.
Yeah, true.
So.
Mine's a little different. I went Top Gun this year on my helmet. If people can figure that out, I've got a couple people who've like, oh, it's Top Gun Mavericks helmet. I've always liked that movie, and John Gibson did it, and he hasn't done it for a while now, but I like the look of it, so I did that one.
Nice.
Pads, I went stock this year, but usually I do a digi-print on the Bowers. Usually I drop my own thing. Last year I did my own design. In junior I did my own designs and stuff, but you just get bored and draw designs, and whichever one I like I use, right? So, that's kind of designs for me. I just have too much free time on my hands sometimes. So,
yeah.
I think it's cool how both of these guys, like I said, that the thing that makes the position so unique, in my opinion, is you can watch these guys play and you really start to see them play within their personalities. And I think that's what makes this position so unique. It's cool to be able to see them ultimately be able to express themselves through the gear and through the helmets, but then ultimately when you watch them play too, it's kind of crazy how they try to emulate, whether it be Bobrovsky, whether it be other guys that are in the National Hockey League. So now you kind of draw on that as a coach and be able to try to use simulation or situations that these guys have been successful in and try to mimic that in their games.
For sure. And you bring up Top Gun. Didn't even tell you guys before we started recording, because I'm really good at this, but the show is called Fellowship of the Rink. Joe Smith of The Athletic and I, we both like Lord of the Rings. Couldn't come up with a name. We're like, how do we make this
That's awesome.
You're
fun?
going to get me going.
Oh, here we go. I love this. All right. Well, you already talked about Top Gun. Great inspiration for the helmet. I want to get into like any other ideas we might have for creative pads you could create off of a show, movie, whatever. But let's just start Lord of the Rings here, because clearly you're like very excited about
Let
this.
me think.
Are you a like?
He loves
Oh,
it.
I watch
Just a huge
every
fan.
year. I
Really?
watch The Hobbit all 3 of them in 3 days the other day.
Have you seen it? I've never. My wife wants me to watch.
I've seen.
I'm
Lord of the
trying to
Rings,
get
but-
them to watch it, but
never
I've
seen
seen
it.
all the Rings of Power too. The second season was better.
I think that the show gets a bad rap. Like, it could certainly be better in certain ways, but like, I like a lot of things about it.
It was good.
I like with the nerd stuff. Like, I like origin stories. Like,
Yeah.
one of the coolest ones is like the X-Men, like Wolverine
Yes.
origin, like
Yep.
going back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's like what this show is to me. It's like going and like seeing the origins of Sauron, because like he's the most important character in the movies, in the books, and like he gets zero
Great
time
Deceiver.
at all in the movies.
The Great Deceiver. Yeah.
That sounds a lot like a goalie,
Yeah.
right?
Sauron's a goalie.
I mean, when you
There's the next
when you-
helmet.
when you do your
about it.
job, it's good work. You did your job, but then when you mess up, it's the world's falling. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's pressure packed.
What can I put on a helmet though? Lord of
Tough
the Rings.
position.
Think on that. But
Frodo
so,
or whatever.
I mean, Liam, what about you? Like, is there
Red was his
anything, like, it
hair.
doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings, but, like, is there anything, whether it's, like, a nerdy book or a show you've watched, did you collect something, or if you got nothing, feel free to just throw whatever the latest binge is on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching Prison Break as the latest binge
Okay.
for me. But no, I don't know. I would never nerd out and put something on my pads like that. I'm a traditionalist at heart.
You're a traditionalist who just grabs whatever someone else traditionally did.
Exactly.
I like it.
Like, I'm not like the whole digiprint. Like, I wouldn't. Like, even if I had the option, I don't know if I'd do it. Like, I that's not what I remember hockey gear looking like. Like, I just remember, like, you know, Broders. I don't even remember the brand. but
Gatekeeper Heatons.
just
Oh, yeah,
like
come on.
weird shapes
yeah.
of different color. Like, I love that. Like, that part. Or even, like, I think one of the most underrated pads ever is the Reeboks. If you remember, it was kind of like weaving with like little edges.
Yeah.
It like vines.
Yeah.
It looked like rose vines or
Oh, what were
rose
those?
thorns. Those were pretty cool to me.
I like that. There was the cool ones. I can't remember who did it. Was it Gibson or Quick maybe, that had like the full out like American flag leg pads for Team USA.
Yep.
I got to show you guys one here because I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you're very familiar and up with the state tourney here. You guys have probably heard of it, but probably haven't watched it. Did anyone see the Cretin-Derham Hall goalies pads last year? He was the backup and ended up getting in and like playing really well.
I must have, but
I'm going to show you guys right now. They are Zubaz inspired. You can just pass it around.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it. Like, it's pretty cool.
I mean, that's
For
not
a day.
with a shooter.
Right?
You know? Look at those.
Oh wow, yeah, those are loud.
Very loud.
You better make some saves.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You gotta-
making saves. I don't know if you ever played against St. Cloud Cathedral at all in your time. So we had to play them. They were in our conference every year, and they had a goalie who flat out had the brightest highlighter yellow helmet, pads, and gloves, going with their bright highlighter. Like, it hurt my brain just to look at him to shoot.
It's I think the only emulation there was probably like an early Marc-Andre Fleury when he had all the yellow. But you're right, that was a different yellow. It was highlighter.
His was a
These were
normal yellow.
Right.
I had the yellows, the Marc-Andre yellows. I'm
So
just a
sweet.
copycat.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
You are.
All French guys.
Who's a goalie you don't like? Who's a goalie that you wouldn't copy? Sounds like you copy everybody.
Whoever's not French.
I mean, I don't know. Am I supposed to just name drop people?
Here we go.
I don't like it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's a lot. Like, I think that in the NHL,
French, man.
there is a lack of like good-looking gear.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, it's all subjective.
I mean,
So,
sure. I mean, really what we got to do.
Like Lundqvist always had amazing pads.
That's a great point.
Also,
Always
I don't
had
care
amazing
what
pads.
that man wears. I'm probably going to say it
Yeah,
looks
that's
great because
true.
he's wearing
Yeah,
it. Like,
that's-
let's just be honest.
Correct. That's true.
But like, I mean, like the new kids in right now, like I don't know what they're doing. Like I don't like it.
Oh, all right. Have you guys ever watched? It's called Ink Master.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
Familiar? No?
Heard of it.
Heard of it.
So basically the idea is it's another reality TV show where there's a panel of judges and people come in and like they do different tattoo challenges,
yeah.
narrows down throughout and leave. We need to come up with some kind of iteration of that, but on goalie pads. Like, who does and who doesn't have the right style.
Yeah.
You could do like goalie mask designs for that.
Oh, there's a
Airbrush
lot of things we could
competition.
do with that.
Competition,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Early phases. Great brainstorming.
yeah.
I like that.
Trademark that quick.
What about you, Coach? What'd you wear?
Actually, everything that they had talked about. No, I'm dating myself. I feel young at heart, but I started right when it was the Heaton transition to CCM, transition to Reebok. So I went with, I loved at that time Roberto Luongo. It was just clean, all of his white stuff. Tried to get
like
the same strapping setup that he
love
had.
that style.
Yeah.
Like an all white pad,
Yeah,
clean.
with just a tiny bit of color. So that was Reebok was the last set I wore. So when these guys come to me sometimes with pad questions, I feel so outdated. Like I'm starting to feel my age, where they ask questions about, did you see this model? I'm like, no, I didn't. I used to be up on all of that, but now it's kind of, I know I'm so lucky to work with these guys that I know that whatever they're putting on, that they're going to make saves. So that's all that matters to me.
I'm outdated compared to him. Like, he knows everything about his pads, his skates. He's like asking me questions, and I don't even know how big my pads are. I don't know what size skate I
He doesn't
wear.
even know how to skate. Like,
How often do you
heard you
just
ask
like
that
nod
today.
and smile like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, when really you're like,
but like, how do you not know what size skate you wear?
Every
That's
year,
tough.
I just go order the same.
Yeah. You got me in the system? Go ahead. Duplicate
Just go
it.
get. Like, I've been wearing the same skates since I was 16.
I should just ask your
Man,
shoe
you're-
size and then add 2. Or take
I don't
away
even
2.
know if that
Take away
works.
2.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know how it works, man. You're not asking me.
depends on if you're on the metric system or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, jeez.
Oh man. All right. So last one on like goalie specific stuff. It's come up a lot recently with Fleury, who's on the verge of retirement. Awesome career. We all know that. Has yet to get his goalie goal or goalie fight, and that's like, he needs that so bad. I'm still upset that the refs wouldn't let him and Bennington go.
Yeah.
But for you guys, I don't know, like, prior to this, if you've had any goalie fights or goals, and if not, like, let's talk hypotheticals, playing pro hockey. Which one would be cooler to have, a goalie fight or a goalie goal?
Goalie goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
School's tried this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
still
a foot away.
Trying. Yeah.
Still
I've been
trying.
He
trying.
was a foot away.
Have you ever had one pre-college?
No.
No?
The
Close?
closest I've ever been, and this is like, I wanted to swing my stick.
Yeah.
I shot it right on the net, like, terrible mistake from the forward. I had all the time in the world, and I sent it, and it was like online, and the player like full like,
Oh, it got it.
and he tipped
High
it,
stick?
so it was high stick, but it was like,
That's the worst.
yeah, I literally went, like, my heart broke.
That's tough.
But yeah, I mean, both in the game would be pretty cool.
That's all time.
I mean, at that point, you have to get the Gordie Howe hat trick, right?
I mean, I don't even know how you make that happen, but yeah.
I mean, if you get the goal, if you get the goal in the
Exactly,
fight,
yeah.
those are the hard ones.
Pass it to
Sometimes
Snuggie
the
and-
assist is harder.
Yeah.
The assist is very getting an assist is like pretty lucky, like, in general, unless you're sending it like for a breakaway. Like, you need someone to go coast to coast, or
Correct.
you need to, like, for the puck to get like up the ice in one pass and then in the net, like, it's a pretty clean play that you need to be happening. So
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, what about you? Fight or goal?
A goal would be cool, but that's never happening. That's for real here.
Okay.
a lot of time in the
I
gym.
don't
We can do
plan.
it. Yeah.
I don't plan on trying to go for a goalie goal.
So it's
not
sitting there.
fighting.
The C-
I'm saying. I know I'm not fighting.
the C part's for you. You're not taking a shot at it?
No, because for me personally, the risk is too great of passing it right down the middle, flubbing it,
Flubbing
and
it,
giving
yeah.
it right to him.
And going in the net.
Yeah.
You're in net.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's how I see it.
So, Coach, how do we feel about it? Like, if you see one of them lining up to rip it down the ice.
I mean, the nerves start going a million miles an hour, but then it turns to excitement because, like I said, was that against Penn State?
Against Penn State I tried, and then I tried again against.
That would have been
Wisco?
insane.
Against Penn State would have been
Wisco.
gnarly.
And we're talking like a foot. If this guy's a foot
Closer,
it's in the net. It was online. It had enough juice.
Just
I mean, it was so
right?
cool to
No, the
see.
D got it.
Yeah, he caught.
Yeah, that's right.
The D skated to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a little nervous, but then obviously once it gets past the blue line out of your zone, then
that's all you're really aiming for.
then you're
is, like,
starting to
get
get
it over the
excited.
blue line.
That's the goal. Goal is the bonus.
Fair. Well, let's get right into it then with the Gopher stuff. Like, playing against Penn State here.
Yeah.
How cool was that?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a tough week, like, building up to it. Like, I'm pretty sure I smashed a stick in goalie.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't feeling too good. Like, again, talk about pressure. Like, just what if, like, the worst scenario happens, right? Like, that's, like, devastating. But, like, once the game started, it literally all just went away, which is great. Like, that's what you wanted to happen. And then I just got the opportunities. I mean, it was a weird game in general. Like, nothing really was going on. 0-0 the whole time. Just, shot at time, really. That's what at least that's how I focus on my game. It's a shot at time. I break my game up in 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes is like, good job. Like, you did your 5 minutes well. Then we got a goal, nice goal, like, greasy goal. Loved it. And, I guess it was just kind of like a fairy tale ending to that. Just 1-0. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better day that day, really. Pretty happy about it.
It showed. You were beaming, dude. When
Yeah,
you
I
came
mean,
off.
I can't not beam like that. I did, like, again, like, you're, like, all
so
week,
cool.
you're like, what if they just get, like, 5 in the first? I'm getting yanked. Like, you're thinking about those things, and then, but it didn't happen. You didn't get scored on, so now
He's still feeling it right now. You're reliving all of it.
That's a great
so
day. It was a great day.
Yeah.
It was a great day.
Well, so how did you end up with the Gophers?
I called Bob. Yeah, I mean,
I'd like to come.
Yeah, that's literally what it was. I want to come. I want to be a Gopher. I play against them all 4 years. The way they play, the amount of talent. Like, I knew that coming here, even if I didn't play a game, I'd get better, which was, like, it's exactly what I want. Like, so, and ready for a challenge. If I was thinking, like, hey, if I can't, like, fight my way to getting some ice time here, then how am I going to do it in pros? So let's get a test run going. State of hockey. You walk around the walls here. There's history everywhere. Just Paul Martin's our player helper. Like,
Right.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, and also, like, just having a full-time goalie guy, that was a big deal too. And turned out that our full-time goalie guy's pretty good at it, so that worked out good. But yeah, I mean, want to be a Gopher, try to make it happen. Send me a call.
It seems like it's been working out pretty well, man.
Yeah, no, day at a time. We're working.
Well, so for both of you, and we'll start with you, Nathan, like, what makes a Canadian kid decide I want to play college hockey?
Yeah. Obviously, the WHL where I live is everybody's dream at that age. At 14, we're drafted. And from there on, it's, have a good camp right away. And if you have a good camp, they put a contract in front of you. And I was pretty lucky at the time. I knew a lot of the guys that were in junior hockey, the AJ there. So I kind of had that persuasion right away to take a second and think about it, especially for my route, being not somebody who was physically ready for the WHL right away. For me, it was, I got to think about what's best for me. And honestly, I didn't know a lot about college hockey. I didn't know a lot about here really until I came here on a visit. And for me, I enjoy school. I like that side of things, and I wanted to have a backup plan if I get hurt or something goes wrong. So those are kind of things that are put into your mind. Obviously my mom put that in my head a lot. But that's kind of my train of thought on that, and how it all led to here was ultimately got to have two plans, and this for me was the best route out of those two. So
Nice. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was like, "You're going college hockey." And I was like, I didn't even know what it was. Like, I mean, I was like,
Playing goalie,
I was like,
going to college.
I was like 14 years old, and obviously like the QMJHL draft, like they do it in person. I don't know if they still do it since COVID, but like there's 15-year-old kids, like they're going to an arena and you're sitting down and you're waiting for your name to be called. And my dad's like, "You're going college hockey." I was like, yeah. I'm like, let's go to the draft first.
Yeah.
So I go to the draft, and that year I was starter and we had a backup, same age. So I had played like something like 40 games. The other one had played like 20. And then 7th round, there's 15 rounds, I think, in the Q draft. 7th round comes up, and then it's like goalie from this team. So I literally like go to stand up, and it was backup's name got called. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Damn.
Like, wake up call, right? Like, so then I remember leaving the arena, and then again, door opened. My dad was like, "Are we going college hockey?" I was like, yeah, we can go college hockey.
I guess you're right.
Yeah, after that, as soon as that happened, I remember like my mindset just was like, okay, you're doing everything you can to get a college scholarship somewhere. And so made my way.
at the time, it's riskier for us.
Yeah,
with all the new
mean,
rules, right?
I didn't getting here was no cakewalk.
No.
I mean, I got cut from. I tried coming to the States to come play like null hockey. Like, I don't even know how many times I got cut every single time. USHL by my 19th year. Like, I was already committed, and I couldn't even find a USHL team to take me. Like, so just, I mean, if you're good enough, people will find you. Is what like I tell myself, and it has kind of worked out that way. But there's obviously luck, and I call Penn State too. Like I'm recruiting myself everywhere I go. but yeah, I mean, again, school, same deal. Getting an education while doing it is important. And I mean, the crowds are way better.
Yeah.
The energy's way better. It's cool. Like, I think it's cooler. Like, sure, you can play major junior for 4 years and there's 1,200 people there and they're shaking their cowbells, but it's not a Friday or Saturday night at Mariucci against a Big Ten opponent.
Not even close.
It's just like, it's just never going to be like that. So yeah, college hockey's pretty, and especially for goalies, I think too, like we're such late bloomers. Like, I think it's like the peak age for an NHL goalie is like 30 years old. Yeah. Like,
Right.
That's the best they'll ever play.
Yep.
So
I don't know, dude. If you go to Twitter, I'm pretty sure people have already given up on Wallstedt at 22. So
yeah, like, which is crazy. I mean, people give up on Price in Montreal.
Yeah.
Or like trade Price. Like, you know,
Halak, dude, Halak.
He was good.
They were still talking about Bobrovsky. Go back to that. Like,
Yeah.
people were
Pretty
saying this
nuts.
is a terrible contract, and now all of a sudden he wins a Stanley Cup, and everybody's like, brilliant.
Narrative shifts
It
pretty
was
quick.
awesome.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's, I mean, like, the game is so different for a goalie.
Yeah.
Like, it's all in your head. It's all like how you process
ever.
the game.
Is it ever?
Like, so it's not how, like, yes, it's how fast you can move your legs, but you don't have to move your legs that fast if you know, like, where it's going first.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, just taking your time coming to college hockey as a goalie, I think, is like the only way you should really do it. Like, even if you're the best in the world, like Jake Ottinger, for example, like, he's the best at his age, he still went college. Like, go play college at 18, be that guy at 18, 19, and then make your way to the NHL at 20. Like, this is like, we're talking like the 0.5%, like how many goalies do this?
Right.
Like, nobody does it. So, yeah, I mean, I think, again, AHL, pro, like, college, like, they kind of all mix in the same area. So as a goalie, like, that's what you're trying to face. So college is the way.
For sure. I was just going to ask, because I know, like, you've really carved out a cool position for yourself in being, the goalie whisperer a bit.
Thank you.
I mean, Dryden McKay, man, that's certainly no joke. everyone loves what went on with Justin Close prior to these guys. Like, this is the first time you've had a group of guys, right? Like, those were alphas, and we got 2 alphas that are going back and forth. I mean, we basically got Friday Nathan, Saturday Liam. What's it like managing that as a coach?
It's pretty easy. I'll be honest with you. These guys are, and I don't just say this because they're here. Can you guys step out real quick? No, I've never met a tighter group of goalie partners. Just how receptive they are to both bounce ideas off of each other as far as, and that's before I even get to it. They pretty much have all the world's problems solved before I get involved. For me, it's just been, I don't think I get to tell these guys enough to their face. It's been so truly honoring and humbling to be able to work with these guys on a daily basis, because they're receptive. Not only are they great goalies, but they're great human beings. And I mean, they make my job a blast, if you can call it a job, coming to the rink every day.
Loyal SodaPod listeners, if you're in the South Metro or just need to explore some new breweries, head to Bloomington's first and only tap room, 9 Mile Brewing. Some of my favorite beers on tap right now are Current Obsession, 9 Mile's flagship New England IPA, and Harness the Dark, their Imperial Rye Porter aged in J. Carver rye whiskey barrels, brewed in collaboration with J. Carver for their 3rd anniversary party just this last month. 9 Mile will be hosting bingo every Thursday, with 2 blackout games starting at $500 and 1 progressing up to as much as $1,000. Lastly, everyone, please circle March 14th on your calendar, as there will be a silent auction for the amazing Steph, who has been courageously battling cancer for 8 years. I'll be there from 6 to 8:30, enjoying some great beers and supporting an even greater cause with actually Gopher hockey memorabilia and Minnesota Wild tickets among the great auction items that will be up for grabs. Hope to see you all there.
Have you ever been in a goalie tandem like this? Like, what's it like from your guys' perspective?
Yeah, no, I haven't. And it was fun. It's hard to get to where we're at. The relationship we have, I've never had it with anybody else. And I think that partially it's on me in the past and on other factors. But I think without even talking to each other, we kind of just, when I showed up here, we kind of just both were all right, let's build. We're just going to build a relationship. And it just kind of happened. And I've been so happy to cheer him on Friday nights. The only thing I want to see is him get the dub. And I've never felt like that about another partner really before. So it's taken a long time for me to get there, but I'm really, really happy that, he helped me out to get to that spot to where, I can just, have a friend and not a competitor, So, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll be honest, one of the best men at my wedding is my old goalie partner. I've got a buddy that I always go golfing with. He was one of my old goalie partners, so I've been really lucky with the goalie partners I've had. And for me, it was, if we're really good friends, we're going to understand if one guy plays above the other the next day. For example, he's been playing the last little bit, and I'm super happy for him. But at the same time, obviously I want to play, right? But if we have that relationship, a friendship, there's a healthy way of doing it, right? If we didn't have a good relationship, then that little competition could become toxic and hurt the team. So for me, it's build a relationship, have a friend for life, and battle it out, because that's what we want to do, right? It doesn't, the fact that he's played the last little bit doesn't change the fact that we're best friends, right? I've got a lot of best friends on the team too, and he's been playing so good. I just want to play as good as I can in practice to push him to be better too, right? If we have a good relationship, push each other to be better, both of us are going to be better in the end.
Yeah, and for the viewers and listeners, like, this should not be coming out of a 20-year-old's mouth. Like,
Yeah, that's
like he is above and beyond his years in maturity and calmness, and like I think it, kind of, washed out on me when I got here and I saw him the way he, had his composure set, and but yeah, I mean, he's totally right, and I mean, we both bought into that boat, and it's been a success so far, so we just got to keep doing it.
Yeah, for me, I mean, we talk about everything. We've talked about relationships. We talked about, obviously, our nice stuff, faith. That's what it comes down to for me is the faith that God will provide a path for me. And whether that's, going right away, whether that's taking my time, like for me, that's what I rely on. And, he's been playing recently, so got to put that, hey, you need a little bit more time to develop. And I'm okay with that. I'm going to support him the best I can. So.
Yeah, you're not 20. I need to see an ID.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm 21.
21?
Oh!
Yeah, freshly 21, yeah.
Yeah, is it weird being Canadian and having like 21 actually be an age that's cool?
Well, it's weird. In Alberta, it's the dream is 18, right?
Right.
So then, like, you come here and it's like, oh, I can't go have one with the guys.
Right. Then you turn 21, like, oh, I can do this again.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, I missed that wave. I aged out. I did it the right way. Aged out at juniors, got here at 21 already.
Masterclass.
You know what you were doing.
Yeah, that was on purpose.
Yeah.
I developed later on purpose.
But I mean, so he pumped your guys' tires already. Like, what do you guys have to say about what Coach has done to push you guys as well and like help you along the path that you've been on this whole year? Because like, candidly, it's been awesome to watch you guys. It's been one of those years where like it's just kind of an unknown, right? Like we've had closer for several years and we knew exactly what we were getting. Mm-hmm. Fans come in this year, they're like, don't really know much about either of these guys. And everyone is big fans of what you guys have been doing. But what's his role been in all that?
Yeah, I mean, like I like a quote unquote goalie guy, like watching my games, I haven't had that in I don't even know how many years. So I didn't get the chance to kind of have somebody teach me my mistakes like in the game. And you can like do it through video, like Zoom sessions, but like it's never the same than when you're like he's watching the game. Like I know he's like taking notes. Like I see him on his notepad. Like every time something happens, he's like, okay, this I need to remember that. And like so obviously for one, he's prepared and committed to making us better, which is awesome. And for two, like he just knows what he's talking about. And he like the best way to say it is the position can be played any other way. You can play it any way you want. He knows how to like teach you within your way, which is like has been really great. And little things for me that like I didn't even know I was doing wrong, that he just pointed out and harped on. And at the beginning, I'll be the first to admit, like I was like, this is like I don't know, I've never worked this way. Didn't really listen, and then like video started coming back, and I subconsciously was doing the things that he wanted me to do, and then then I started consciously changing my ways into the way he wanted to do, and then translate to the game. So yeah, I mean he's been one of the better things that's ever happened to me, for sure. And I'm most likely going to stay here this summer and train with him for that reason. So yeah, I mean, all props to him. I don't think any of us would be here or be doing as good without him. I think he's kind of an unsung hero of this team this year. So
yeah, I mean, you look at me, I'm 6'3", you're
5'11".
5'11".
6 with skates.
6 foot. 6 foot.
We play very differently, and it can be hard for goalie coaches to understand that, because a lot of times you'll get people who just are stuck in one way. Like he was saying, there's multiple ways of playing, and he's so good at crafting our games for how we play the best, right? So I don't save a puck the same way he does, right? There's a lot of differences that we do, but he's able to take the best out of our games and make it the best that it can be. And that's a very hard skill for goalie coaches. And, you know, I coach in the summer, and that's something I can also take from that. Like, you see a lot when you goalie coach. Like, you take little things. And he's able to look at our game and build off of what we've built and just make it the best that it can be. Again, like he was saying, there's a lot of stuff that I had no idea I was doing wrong too. And he pointed it out and just be like, hey, like, let's try this or maybe focus on that when you're doing this. And it's just increased my knowledge of the game and my save selection when it comes to certain situations. It's made me think about it for sure, and it's been cool to kind of play through it, and lots of stuff that he's pointed out that I've really liked and have taken. So
Nice.
I need you guys to come around more often, please. This is
I know, right?
this is a good therapy session.
Yeah.
But no,
I'll swing by the summer trainings. Don't worry.
We I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was the first day, and just like you, I'm reading the news clippings and seeing Golden Gophers, biggest unknown, goaltending. I knew Nathan from last year when he got healthy. I knew what he was capable of. I watched him through the recruiting process. I saw Souls playing against him for 3 years, and I knew what kind of an athlete I was working with. What's been so great is we talked about it. I brought it up to him, and I wanted to make sure that I was very clear with what my expectations were and what I knew that these guys were capable of doing. I said, we can talk about the unknown all we want. I said, I know what we have in this group, and the expectations are us being the best. And we're going to be at the top of the save percentage, the goals against, because I know what you guys are capable of. And they've truly bought in on it. And it's just it's so great to see these guys start to reap the rewards, because again, like I said, it's a pretty thankless position. When you do your job, it's good job, you're supposed to, and when you don't, there's everything is magnified. So for these guys to get the recognition for their hard work and for all of the work that they've done, it's really cool to see.
And I want to highlight Zach Weiss too. Weiss,
Yes.
Yeah, Weiss are unreal. Like,
His
best third
skating-
goalie of all time, by the way.
Oh my gosh, he is. Some of the saves he makes are amazing, and he just gets up and starts barking.
But he again,
I love
though, we
that.
talk about it, like the goalie union, you're as strong as your weakest link. Zach he's not only a tremendous goalie, but he's a tremendous human.
Yeah.
Like, he's pushing these guys. He's the first to ask them, whatever they need. And like I said, there isn't one of us without all four of us. So it's just like I said, it's been unique, and I appreciate that, because you're right. Like, he works his tail off, thanklessly. So
Yeah.
that's a good point.
No,
We'll blame Slarks that he's not in here with
Correct,
us right
yeah.
now.
I mean,
Yes.
for sure. I mean, he talk about like owning your role.
Yeah.
Like same way that I was owning my role on Friday nights, cheering you on, and you're owning your role. Like, he just nonstop is just the energy in the room.
Yeah.
Like, and he's good. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, he's good. Like, it's funny. I think I was talking to his girlfriend. Like, I was at his apartment. His girlfriend was like kind of giving him a hard time about like whatever, not being a goalie. And I was like, listen, like, he's the best third goalie I have ever seen in my life.
I'm telling you,
We could put him in a game, and
Correct.
I'm not joking. Like, he wouldn't look out of place.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
100%.
But yeah, Zach Weiss bump for sure.
Dang,
Great call.
I like that. So, Jimmy Snuggerud, you guys see him more than anyone else does.
Yeah.
What makes his shot different?
It's never the same. Like, he has this traditional dragon pull, but he can, like, any angle, he's getting it off, and he's getting elevated. He's like, and I think the one thing that, like, I would teach kids, like little kids, when there's a rebound, like, he is putting it through the net.
Yes.
Through my head. Literally through
He
my
is.
head.
There's no like, there's some players that like open net, like they just gently like
Tap it.
never. he's putting it through, putting this like all the muscle, like that's like, I mean, that's goal scorer touch, and he's a crafty little guy too. He backhand 5-hole high, like low, like there's no like, he likes blocker a little more from just, I guess, warming up is where he goes.
Yeah.
But and then after that, it's wherever. So I think that's a big part of him being a great shooter.
Wasn't it? I think it was last year when we played Colorado. He just like spun around and took a slap shot.
Yes, and it went in.
Yeah, and it went in like top shot. He just shoots. It doesn't matter if he's looking. Like, he'll just try and hit it as hard as he can. And there's a skill there that's not natural. There's something God-given about that where he can just rip it from wherever. Doesn't matter how he's standing, where whose stick is where, he's just gonna shoot it. And it's pretty amazing to see something like that, and to be in practice with it every day. Like, I mean, it's a big help for us because we get to see something like that. I think the NHL did a couple interviews on guys about Ovi's shot. It was like how it's ducking, it's diving, it's all this stuff. I mean, his does that sometimes, and then sometimes there's just an absolute laser right by your head in the net. Like, it's unbelievable.
You can't like predict it.
Yeah.
It's like, like it's like baseball players, like when the pitcher's like throwing the ball, like they can see the motion get cocked. Like, imagine trying to hit a baseball without seeing the motion.
Yeah.
It's just
Closing your eyes before it's released.
That's I've never heard it put that way before, but that actually makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. So, two-parter then. Who's the guy on the Gophers that people need to know how good their shot is that's not talked about? And who's the guy you've played this year at all in your college career that, outside of the Gophers, best shot?
on the team.
I know my answer. I can't wait to hear your guys'.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a ton of guys that shoot it really hard on our team. But like, who's a sniper? Like, I'm trying to think who snipes.
I have mine if you want.
You can go. I'll go last. I need to sit on
You
this.
don't. No, you can't go goalie pads and just copy his answer.
No, I won't. I won't.
Matthew Wood's shot
I thought that was one that would come up.
is his shot doesn't need to be hard because he's so smart and his placement is so good. Like we saw it last weekend, you know, just that shot that he, I think that was on the power play, right?
Yep.
I mean, unbelievable shot. It was because he's Canadian, I don't know. There's something about his shot where he'll come down on the wing and he won't have much room and he'll manipulate it to where he makes room.
Sure.
And that's another skill that will take him to the next level for sure. That if he can do that and keep that ability to manipulate and open up room for himself, it's pretty cool to see.
It was funny. Dylan asked him post game after one of the like absolute snipes that he like. It couldn't have been more than the size of a puck that he lipped it through, and he's like, "What were you seeing there, man? Like it didn't look like there was anything." He's like, "I saw enough." I'm like, "That's all I needed to hear."
It reminds me of like Phil Mickelson, like some of his goals. Like Matthew Wood's playmaking ability is. I mean, his passes are insane. Like his vision is insane, but his shot, in my opinion, is an underrated part. We've kind of seen that in little hits throughout the year for sure.
Nice.
I'm going off the board. Johnny Middlestat.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first initial
Johnny
thought.
Middlestat can. It's hard. It's accurate. He can get it off from anywhere
And he hits the net.
every time. Mm-hmm. Like I coming back off of Christmas break, I remember it like it was yesterday. I watched him shoot however many pucks he shot in a practice. Not one got stopped. Like, his ability to be accurate but still have some steam on it, it's incredible. Like, I keep trying to tell him I wish he would shoot the puck anytime he got in the zone, because he does. Not only if it doesn't go in, chances are it's going to give us an opportunity, to capitalize on a secondary. So he's a sneaky one.
You know why though? He has been in that shooting room all the time.
That makes sense.
Like throughout this year, I always see him going up there and shooting pucks. His work ethic is insane.
Yeah. I mean,
Insane.
shooting room or not, he's also like jacked. Like,
you got on the raw liver
jacked. So, yeah, he's got some power. That was my first initial thought. But then, like, sneaky for sure. Like, I hate to say this, but Lammer.
Oh yeah,
goalie session. Yeah.
Like, he misses sometimes. Like, he'll miss that, but he's got some spots that he doesn't really miss much, and he can snipe, and he's got kind of like the same length.
Yep.
Like, he can put it the low blocker, low glove, then he goes, his usual fun high, but he's got a good shot.
He is the world's best player in goalie session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is so good.
Doesn't miss.
He's so good.
He's pretty good.
I've never heard that before. I've heard best practice player, one that comes up for that one all the time is Rem Pitlick. Best practice player I've ever seen in my life. But then I've never heard that for goalie session. That's interesting. I like it.
He's always out there. He's always asking, "How are we going to goalie session?" I don't know what it is. He just loves scoring us in goalie session.
Yeah.
We have an unbelievable group, and I think that this is ultimately what challenges these guys. Like, Snuggy's always out at goalie session. Woody now has lately been out there for the second half. Lammer has been there every day since I've been on campus.
Nice.
Mikey Kester,
Yeah.
Chaz can fire it.
Rinzy.
Yeah. Cal Thomas.
Yeah.
Nick
Bomb.
I mean, all our D
guy,
can really bomb it. Like, our D can bomb it.
Yeah. When Groobs gets his one.
Yeah, Groobs is a dangerous shooter too.
Yeah, I think you could go down and he'd probably be. The better question is,
who's the worst shot?
Yeah, and I'll raise my hand for that one.
Oh,
Leroy.
Yeah.
Leroy. Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys willing to spill the tea then? Like, across the league, anyone you faced, like, who's the opponent that you do not want shooting on you?
Like, I don't know if it's just like the do not.
Sure.
Like, that's a little
The one that's
It's almost the one we want shooting on us as a challenge.
I like that.
How I think about it.
Who's the one you want to shoot on you most as a challenge? You should edit that out.
Ike Howard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Aiden Fink's shot is
really I mean, I
too.
practice with that guy.
Yeah, I know you know very well.
He's got good release.
Yeah.
I know where he shoots, I think, though, which helps. But I know that other goalies don't.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's anybody that I would say probably Isaac Howard is the one for me.
Yeah.
He can get it off from anywhere.
Yeah, like, same deal as
Yeah.
Snuggy. Like, and he's got a nice little, like, the low glove.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got my number quite.
Sorry to lose fans.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, Aiden Fink, like, I mean, he's leading the nation in points, man.
Yeah.
He's really good at hockey.
For sure.
And also, like, small little frame, like, it looks like nothing, and then
Yeah. That's the worst when it's the deception.
yeah,
You're expecting something to not come that hot and heavy.
Yeah,
And
and
then all
it's
of a sudden it hits you. You're like, oh.
yeah. No, he's right-handed shooters, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because you're strong. I mean, they're strong, dominant hand on the bottom.
Yeah.
More flex, more torque.
You
more,
know that, Phil Kessel. There's a guy that could fire the pill.
yeah.
Just the things that a guy who looks like that can do.
Yeah.
How can you not be fascinated and mesmerized by
agree.
it? It's impressive.
It's even better that he's a Gopher.
Yeah.
It's even better
Yeah.
that he's from Wisconsin
Yeah,
and he
that's
said,
true. That's
"Bye,
true.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go play
that's
for the
true.
Gophers."
Good call.
That's still hand up,
Yeah.
best celebration I'll ever see.
That is all time.
So when you started your junior A career, right? You went to Cranbrook. Now I went and saw Kootenay Ice when they were there before, but there was a lot of pressure on your group. Now I know it was like kind of a shorter season when it expanded there, and you guys were filling that community's need for a hockey team again. Tough first, what was it, like 15 games the first season or whatever, but that group came back unlike a junior A group that I've ever seen. And then you guys dominated for the next few years and you actually led them to playoffs. So what was that like? Was it, I mean, you're a goalie, so there's always a little bit of pressure, I guess, but what was that feeling like? Expansion team, you're kind of filling the shoes of the WHL. That was literally there the year before.
Yeah.
And then after, what was kind of probably expected of a little bit of a tougher start as an expansion team, new guys, and then to come back and just run that division. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, first off,
Shout out to the Bucks, by the way.
yeah, the big weekend for them. The organization, I mean, the staff there, Nathan Lewin and Ryan Dow did an amazing job building a culture right away. And it was something that, you know, us guys, kind of that core group is that we embraced right away. And we wanted to build something that lasted, you know, onto the next teams was that culture. You know, we were in Penticton in that bubble. I didn't get my first BCHL win for 8 months. I mean, it was a battle, right? We went to play Penticton and Trail.
Yeah.
And it was tough. And we kind of did like a little team scavenger hunt. And there was a house being built. There was a house in process of being built. And then there was this beautiful house that was right on the beach. And we kind of went through it like, right now, we're at this foundation. And, you know, the rest of the time, you know, next year, we're going to be still building that house. But this is our goal, is this amazing house, all these beautiful glass panes and everything. That's cool. And that was something that we kind of prided ourselves on, was building that culture that lasted. And then look where it took us, you know, the next year. I think we were 6th and had a huge battle with PG in the playoffs and did really well. And then the next year after that, like it's our third year, was we were 2nd in the division. Obviously a disappointing end to that year for us, but you know, we were expecting to get to Penticton in the divisional championship and battle them out, right? So that's kind of something that we really took pride on, was building the culture first there, for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And like, I grew up in British Columbia. I lived in Prince George when I was a kid, then Nanaimo, then Victoria. So like, I grew up just watching, you know, BCHL Fridays, and then if there was dub, you know, we'd go Saturdays. Someone always had tickets. But that's super cool, because I have some really good friends who are from Cranbrook, and I went to visit them right when they lost the team. And then, you know, a few weeks later, there was news of the expansion, and it was just really cool, because that community loves their hockey. Mm-hmm. And like, I know that they were devastated when the Ice did move to Winnipeg, but that's cool that like you helped build that culture now that's paving the way for a bunch of new guys. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it. I mean, there's give or take, you know, 20,000 people that live there, and in our first playoff game, the second year, we didn't have restrictions on how many people could be in the building, and we had over 3,000 people in the building, right? So you do the math
for
on
BCHL,
that, right?
that's like those are dub numbers, so that's
right.
huge.
I mean, that's you know, over 10%. Of the population in the building in the town. Yeah, it was amazing,
and not too far from home too, right, Cranbrook?
Yeah, 4 hours. Right. So, what a place to play, though. That's a fun spot with that community.
Hell yeah,
fans are amazing.
Speaking of fun places to play, you had a small stint in Victoria.
Yeah.
After dominating the CCHL, but how was that experience like? Because I don't want to say it was similar, because it wasn't an expansion team, but there was a pretty dominant group for a while before you joined them.
Yeah.
You played your 15 games, and what was so unique about that group, it was very much like, obviously you helped steal some games, not gonna lie, but that group was cool that there were no like 80 to 100 point players. Like Newhook wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right? You know, and it was coming off kind of that high. You know, Matthew Wood obviously had dominated there as well, as you guys know, and know him very well. But what was that like, even though it was a short, you know, stint with a group of guys who, like, I think the leading point scorer was like 56 points in like 50 some games or whatever. But by committee, you guys got to the playoffs, and I know it was a tough round, but just with a program that was kind of finally, after so many years of dominance and like sending guys, you know, first rounders to the show, what was that like? How tight knit was that group, even though you were just there for a little bit? And obviously, you can touch on how sick Victoria and the Q Center is too.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, like the location, like I was looking at pictures of Victoria, and I was like, well, if I'm playing another year juniors, like this is where I want to be. You know? Like, there's no snow all year round, and then like obviously, I think they lost in the finals that year. Like that team recruited me on without even knowing. Like I just remember hearing about how good Victoria was. I was just like, well, okay, well, that's where I want to go. Like, I didn't do much research about like what kind of players were coming in, and then I got hurt in the summer. It was really terrible. I tore my PCL. I was out for like eight months. So I was supposed to just like play, but I guess that was my first. Like, I was a goalie coach for 6 months. Like, I was working with two younger guys. I was like, basically, and it was like, I remember like practice was going on, they were letting in goals, and I was like, you guys shouldn't be getting scored on. Like, this shouldn't happen. No. And I remember like they would look at me like, what is this? Like,
who are you?
Like, why is our third goalie like telling us this stuff? But like, there was just a level of respect there that I had. And then when I got the chance to put the pads back on and those same drills were happening and I wasn't getting scored on, it was kind of like, oh, okay, like he knows what he's talking about. And we, 17 games, I think it was like 12-5 or something. Good little run. I mean, we were led by Cody Mons, played college hockey too. He was our point getter. But yeah, I mean, it was just like kind of deep, hard-working lineup. It's a fun time. Victoria's a great city.
Cool little city, eh?
Yeah.
It's like 500,000 people, like all Greater Victoria, whatever. But like it's kind of just like a little mini Vancouver, which is
it's great.
Which is cool.
We went like four-wheeling.
There's so much stuff to do, right? Especially like out in like Colwood area, right? The mountain biking, the hiking, do those sweet beaches. Like it's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Went to UVic for 4 years, and it was awesome.
Is there surfing out there?
Yeah, like
Tofino.
and Port Renfrew, even in like an hour and a half from Victoria, if you just go straight out west.
Oh yeah,
there's some good surf there as well. I think that's it's one of the heads of the West Coast Trail. So the native community there, they love when people come in and surf because it's their little nook, which is cool. Yeah. Last question, and again, appreciate you guys' time. This is awesome. So you guys could have talked about it earlier in the podcast and just like mentioned how things have changed with this CHL's relationship with the NCAA. And I'm just such a junior hockey guy, growing up out west, WHL, BCHL. So I've been like reading up on how a lot of coaches and other teams, and mostly in the BCHL, are reacting to this. Probably the biggest news, Penticton, the big dog in the BCHL now going to the dub. And then I actually, you haven't even heard about it. Yeah, so Penticton is, okay, well, there you go. So this is even better than, so last week, Penticton, or I guess at the time when this drops, a month ago, a few weeks ago, Penticton now officially going to be joining the dub. And I listened to an interview with the head coach at Trail Smoke Eaters, and he was saying how like they finally built a program here, a culture. They got a lot of young guys, and his concern is either A, some of these guys might not get those college scholarships or opportunities now that he kind of planned for them, or B, these guys are going to leave and go to the dub, or like, Penticton's in the dub, no, sweet, better, some more money coming in or whatever. So hearing all that, like, what are your guys' thoughts on not necessarily all of junior, because I don't think like the NAL is going to get affected, really the USHL, but like, and I hate to say this because I love the AJ as well, but like the BCHL is the one that's really going to get affected, I think. I mean, Coach, you can chime in on this as well, but like what do you guys think is going to be the state of BCHL or at Junior A in Western Canada with this new rule?
Yeah.
Too old. But I mean, it's cool. I know, like for the kids, like it's way better. But I mean,
you shouldn't be restricted, I guess, so young.
Like, I wouldn't exist if this stuff was happening. Like, guys like me, like, I would have died off at like 20 years old.
I don't know. I think you're tenacious and work ethic.
But like, man, like you have to play in junior A, and you have to play in major junior, or you're not getting a sniff at college. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, especially since
make your choice. Make your choice.
Yeah.
Let's meet in pros.
Yeah. Well, especially since like North Dakota's pipeline in Penticton is now in the dub.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that changes a lot. I didn't know that. So that really adds another variable.
Yeah, like the BCHL is going to be like scraps.
I don't know what it's going to turn into, but that's definitely interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's like Victoria, I guess, would be like the next biggest.
It's probably, I mean, if they're going to do it, it's them. It's not going to be
Nanaimo. That Nanaimo rink is never getting a renovation, so it's not going to be them.
It's not going to be Cowichan.
There were 2 or 3 USHL teams that applied to the Ontario League that got nixed.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
They said no. Just for me personally, after going up and being on a little WHL excursion, there are for sure some differences just in the way that the hockey is there compared to college. College is still, it's older, it's bigger, it's faster, it's stronger. The shots are probably more high quality. So I think the one thing that, if anything it does, you're still, some of the blue bloods, the Minnesotas, the Michigans, the North Dakotas, I think are still going to capitalize on some of those guys that are probably first rounders. I could just see major junior going maybe a little younger, where guys now go, 15, 16.
More 16s.
Correct.
More 17s.
Yep. And then now you're looking at, hey, if I have 2 really good years, I'm going to set myself up for
college.
Yeah. But now, do they go college or do they get swayed if they get drafted? So there's just such an anomaly right now that nobody knows what's going to happen. And that's the best way for me, because there's so many interchanges.
And from a fan perspective too, it's like, because I follow.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm getting into college now that I've lived here for 3 years now. But like, man, I watched more dub in BCHL than I did NHL.
Yeah.
Because I just grew up in Prince George, Nanaimo, these smaller towns, and that was it. Great. So like, yeah, I kind of share your perspective where I'm like, this is going to be wild.
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks.
Is it lightning in a bottle for a few years? Do they? Because that's the other part. If this does become kind of a trend-setting thing, do they stay with it, or does it become? I think as a whole, it's going to definitely strengthen college hockey, because now you're going to have guys that are over ages at the Dub or the OHL that now, instead of having to go work on a rig or something, they get
or SPHL and
correct. So now
Dunkin' Donuts.
So now you get to go maybe live the college experience. But the still thing for me is, at one point or another, just to back Sewell's point, you had the option.
Yeah.
Like these guys that are playing in the Dub and the Ontario League, they had the option to go the school route or to go the major junior route. So I think there's still muddy water.
Well, and that's the thing. I think there's still a split. There's
Correct.
like 2 sides to it as well, right?
Correct.
So
that's a great question, though.
All right, last question I got to throw out to you guys. It's for our awesome friends at Waggle Golf. Everyone go to getyourwaggleon.com. Throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. We usually do dream golf foursomes. People put together a group of 3 that they want to go out with for the day. We're all here together, so I'm tasking you each with picking one goalie, could be past, current, whatever, that you want in your cart with you, and we all go out, have a couple pops, hit the course in the summer.
Not sure if he's going to have any pops with us.
Fair.
But Carey Price.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
I have to. Childhood hero. Like,
I mean, one of the best to ever do it in Canada. That's great a call. That's a great call.
Yeah. I mean, I would go there too. I think I'm gonna go Mike Smith.
Ooh.
Okay.
Just on his intensity in a game. Because I'm like super cool.
Yeah.
I want to know his side of it.
I met him.
Have you?
Yeah. He's a psycho.
So it lives up to it.
Yeah.
His ability to just to like turn it on like in a game, like you see the look on his face all the time. Like he is in it. And
I've never seen wires get more crossed up.
I just want to hear his side of it, like his side of the game.
Like that. That's a good answer. All right, Coach. Who's your guy?
I'm going, I got to take 2, because if I take one of them, it would be terrible. I'm going 2 mini guys, Al Stalock and Jake Ottinger.
Have you seen the Stalock Superfan videos?
Oh, yes.
That was when I was in college.
Yeah.
Those videos came out, and like I was always a Gopher fan. I did not like Duluth.
Yeah.
That year, I was cheering for Alex Stalock
Yeah.
because of the Stalock Superfan
Correct.
videos. It's electric.
And then you'd watch him get into the corner and try to break pucks out and outskate D. It's a lot of Sewells, actually. But I was fortunate enough to skate with him in his last few years of pro, and Al is the best, just a first-class human, and I know that he's a pretty good golfer, and I know he likes to have a good time, so it's the best.
Very good answer.
And Otts is a stick, so I would just be sitting there in awe of both
Just
of their
watching.
games. Yeah.
I gotta say, like, those are all really good answers. The fact that Ilya Brzgalov didn't come up once, that's the one that cuts me in my core. Like
that.
I don't even want to golf. He and I are just gonna drive circles in the cart while you guys play, and I'm just gonna let him talk. I'm not even gonna get a word in.
And you know what's crazy is he has a son now that's starting to climb the junior ranks. So
Oh man.
I don't know if college is in the future for the young Brizgala.
He's playing in the
but
Null, is
yeah,
he? Yeah.
yeah. I think he's 16 or 17. So
Dang. That
he's got some big shoes to fill.
that makes me feel so old.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, awesome. Well, hey, really appreciate you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I mean, certainly if you're sticking around to train this summer, I know you guys are going to be around. Can do some other version of this, whether that's our own version of Ink Master or something different. But it's been awesome talking to you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Joe. Now what everyone I'm sure is here to hear more about. How do things shake out in the Central Division after the NHL trade deadline hit? Can we start just with, am I taking crazy pills for thinking that this was way more eventful and noteworthy of a trade deadline than anyone anticipated?
Well, I think everything with the whole Rantanen getting moved was a big surprise. Turns it, the number one guy on the trade board, twice this year, right? Getting moved from Colorado, then the Carolina drama, and then going to the division rival Dallas for maybe $0.5 million more. I mean, obviously taxes are different, but it throws a whole different way into the first round matchup, which could be Colorado and Dallas, which that's unfair. Those two teams have to play each other in the first round.
We need to fix that.
So if you're the Wild, you're like, okay, well, take the wild card, let them beat the hell out of each other and see what happens. Like, you're going to have a tough matchup no matter what. But clearly, I think that happened. The whole idea that Mitch Marner was offered in a trade added some spice level to the trade deadline. A lot of the moves by Brad Marchand getting moved, no one really kind of envisioned that happening. The whole will they, won't they with Brock Besser, they obviously didn't. So I think it became an eventful one, and I'm sure happy for the networks that they got their fill towards the end, but a lot busier for some teams in the Central than others, as I'm sure we're going to get you.
Yeah, for sure. And let's lead with the leaders current day in the division, Winnipeg Jets. They bring in some depth guys, some good playoff depth. Brandon Tanev, Luke Shen, and then they bring in Chris Dreger to play backup role. I am probably in the minority thinking that I have no problem with how they approach the deadline. Like, you see a lot of teams go out and bring in the big fish, and like sometimes it throws things off. Like, where do they fit into the lineup? And Winnipeg has been a well-oiled machine. And a guy like Brandon Tanev, who played there before, I watched him up close and personal for a while in Pittsburgh. Like, this guy is a lunatic. He is absolutely the kind of guy you want in your bottom six for a playoff run. And Luke Shen, again, definitely needs to shake off some of the cobwebs with what we saw in Nashville this year, but he is a reliable, experienced, physical defenseman that they're adding to that group. How do you feel about the Winnipeg Jets? Like, given everything we're going to talk about with Dallas and Colorado, like, are they still top dog or have they been surpassed?
I mean, I think they didn't have a lot of needs going into it, right? And you have the best goalie, arguably, in the league, and you have a playing style up front and on the blue line that's really, they have an identity, a clear identity that they play to. And I think both Shen and Tanev fit that perfectly. And I covered Shen in Tampa, and he was one of those glue guys, kind of a culture guy, and obviously a big physical presence that is built for playoff hockey. He played some of his best hockey for the Maple Leafs when they were got him at the deadline a few years back. A lot of hockey in him left, I think. And so I think he's going to be a really good both on the ice and off the ice for them in a playoff and when the series gets kind of gnarly. So I mean, I think right now it's like 1A, 1B, 1C, I think, in that division. It's so hard to say, like, all of a sudden Colorado is way ahead or down. I mean, you could say Dallas is probably maybe a little bit ahead just because of, adding Rantanen and that kind of thing. But, and they have the goaltending as well. But those three, A, B, and C, I know the Wild have been up there for most of this year. I'm not saying that they're like light years away from them, but until the Wild are healthy, it definitely feels like those guys have separated themselves from the pack a little bit, and it'll make for a pretty brutal first round matchup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's glaring questions still for all three, and the one I throw for Winnipeg is just which Hellebuck shows up. Like, it's certainly a vote of confidence the way he played in the Four Nations, but still, we've seen it past several years. You hit the first round of the playoffs and they've imploded. If you get elite Connor Hellebuck showing up, this is a team that I'm very, very afraid of. But the Dallas Stars, holy crap. Have you seen a deeper forward group? I mean, top to bottom, this is pretty ridiculous. They bring in the big fish, Mikko Rantanen. They gave up a reasonable amount, but I don't think it's a concern. Like, you give up Stankoven and 2 future firsts for a guy like this who you extend as a part of the trade in tandem with the Wyatt Johnston extension. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do this summer. Like, is a guy like Jason Robertson potentially like a guy that gets floated, just given their wealth of riches?
Well, I don't know if that'll be the case, but I think right now, you mentioned they're probably the deepest forward group around. I think you have Sagan, third line center when he's healthy, and I don't know. It's just they have all the different elements that you need in a playoff team. I know they've been knocking at the door.
Do they have all of them, Joe? Do they have all of them? Because my big concern with them is the blue line. I do not believe in this defensive group, even with Heiskanen back, which he's a huge difference maker, but him and Harley are kind of the extent of it for me.
I mean, they're not as deep as other teams on the blue line, and in years past that they've had a deeper blue line in previous playoff runs. So I think that would be a question mark for me if there is any question. But I think what they have up front and what they have in their horses, if they're healthy defensively, like Heiskanen and Harley could play half the game, and Ottinger has already proven he can play well in a playoff situation setting. So what I mean is that they have an all around kind of game, and a lot of their core is locked up for a long time. So they're going to be not going away anytime soon in this division, in this conference.
No, and I think it's pretty widely viewed that Nill's been the best manager of late. Like, you look at how they've built and kept the cupboard stocked. You look at how this team is a contender year in year out. They're scary long term. And of course, the fans that are the most upset are Colorado Avalanche fans who lost Mikko Rantanen. And I'm not even going to really get into the weeds with that, because there's a lot of he said, she said with how that all came to be. But holy crap, have the Colorado Avalanche done like a wholesale turnover of their team. 2 new goalies in. I think half of their forward group, a couple of defensemen. It's crazy, but as far as the deadline's concerned, they bring in Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Jimmy Vesey, Ryan Lindgren, and Eric Johnson, sending out as far as like notable players being sent out. Well, I guess we could even include, Marty Netchis if we're going to talk about Rantanen going out, but Middlestat also going out. That's really it as far as like meaningful roster players. Like, this is a team, if you just look top to bottom, you gotta love what the Avalanche did, but do you think that it can all come together quickly enough, or is this just a jumbled mess?
Well, I like the Charlie Coyle move a lot, and even though it was under the radar compared to the Brock Nelson one. I love Brock Nelson too. I think he would have been a great fit on the Wild, and I know they'll probably go after him in the summertime if he's a UFA, even though he could sign with Colorado if they go on a run. Wouldn't be surprised if he signs there. But I don't think the Wild were ready to put up the pieces, I think, right now for Brock Nelson, or they necessarily should have. But but I see from Colorado's standpoint why they do it. If I'm their GM, McFarland, I'm like, this is a cup team, and so clearly there have been times this year where you're like, okay, they're a little bit vulnerable. I saw the Wild win in Denver. I think it was 3-0 a few months back, and then you could tell that they had some weaknesses, and they definitely did their best to kind of squash those with some pretty big moves at deadline. And we'll see how they all kind of come together. We'll see if Nelson can be the same guy that he was with the Islanders for so many years, and how Coyle fits in. And Nietzsche has been terrific. So that's been harder to lose to Rantanen, but Nietzsche has been great for them. So, I think they're in a really good spot, which just makes Central all the more challenging. And that's why the game, before we record this podcast now, they played the Wild on Tuesday night in St. Paul. another good indication of what the Wild are up against.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk Wild then. Eventful deadline, and I mean, Bill Guerin said as much, right? But they brought in Gustav Nyquist and Justin Brazeau. At this point, is there really any question that we have besides can we get Kaprizov, Ek, and Brodin back with enough like runway to actually acclimate and be ready for the playoffs?
I mean, that's the biggest question in my mind, and I know Bill Guerin got a little testy when Russo asked him about it on Friday after the deadline, because I mean, I think part of it is Guerin probably doesn't completely know the end date for those guys or everything like that, and I think it's frustrating for probably him, for the fans, for team in general. But I think our point, and Russo's point in asking those questions was, if you don't have the full idea and you think guys could be gone till last week of the season, like why not use LTR space, knowing they won't have a long runway anyways to get to the playoffs, of like, why not use it? You don't have to use it for the big name or the big fish. It could just be getting guys that could help you now in the playoffs, for the penalty kill or whatever else, because the moves on the surface, like you knew it'd be a kind of quiet deadline because of the lack of cap space. Nyquist, a guy they've had before, in theory can help on power play, penalty kill. He's been kind of quiet offensively since he came over from the deadline. I think no points in the first 4 games with the Wild. Brazeau, fourth line winger, a guy who's huge. Like, he makes Zach Bogosian look like a so small. So it's just like a guy you could tell he could be a good net front, but he played 4 minutes and 10 seconds on Sunday in his first game with the second game with the Wild. And it's a lot of tough turnaround and a lot to ask of a guy. And clearly they were trying to score a goal down in that game against the Penguins. So you had to, short shifted a few players, but I think it probably led some Wild fans or, be a little disappointed. Like, this is our deadline move, is getting this guy and getting Nyquist. It's a lot harder to watch other teams load up in the Wild not do that. So I guess give it a little more time. I guess we just didn't really feel like in our column on Monday, in our insider column, just didn't really feel that they kind of filled a lot of their necessary needs at the deadline. Like, the Nyquist one in theory could do it. But Brazeau isn't on the penalty kill and that kind of thing. And obviously he hasn't helped, not known for elite goal scoring ability too, which they need some help in that category. So give it some time, I guess, maybe when, as he gets more time to see how he can play and how he fits in. But it is probably tough for Wild fans to see the lack of ice time and impact from guys early on. But it's one thing to say it'll be a quiet deadline and one thing to expect it. And we all understand the reasons why that was the case, but another thing to see kind of the team's struggling right now, right? They were struggling before those guys showed up, and they're struggling right now. So clearly there's a lot more noise and tension and pressure that surrounding the team because of where they are in the standings and without the guys they really need to play at their best.
For sure. And I mean, it's tougher too for fans when they see all the big names moving around, especially all the activity with Dallas and Colorado. But after seeing the price tags that were being thrown on some of these players, like, are you happy that the Wild were relatively quiet given their position? Or do you think that they should have moved on someone because, hey, maybe they are in a spot to win a playoff round or two?
Yeah, I mean, part of me earlier on was like, why not give a shot at Brock Nelson? He's a guy you think you can sign anyways in the summertime. Like, if you give you a better chance to do that, and then you're all of a sudden it's not a rental, right? It's a guy that you can grab and sign. Beyond that, I don't know if they were going to give up a couple firsts or whatever. The Colorado gave up a really good prospect, so you're talking about, are you giving up a year off for that? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, I know Guerin's like this. Our time isn't now. Our time is coming. Everything that may not have been. May not be a cup team right now. So that's probably why he's like, why am I going to get all these assets for 20 games in playoffs when he probably reasonably knows is not a team that's going to be able to do that right now. But it does put the pressure on him like we wrote, for the summertime to make the kind of moves, signings, and trades to put them in position to be a serious contender, because all the excuses are over with the dead cap hits and all that stuff. The time is now, for them to make a move and start building around the core that will be getting older here too. So they got to show Kaprizov that this is a contending team, and if they want him to sign, clearly he's a very smart hockey player. He knows what teams are competitive, what teams aren't, and if he wants to spend his entire career or rest of his prime of his career and his life in Minnesota, I think he has to see beyond liking playing here and liking Minnesota. He has to see that he can win. And so that's why we always felt this year was important, whether they, got first place or third place, is just making the playoffs, first of all, and number two, being competitive enough to show their top player that there's reason to believe here. There's a reason to believe in Bill Guerin's plan, which we all don't know the full extent of that is yet.
Yeah. And do you feel like we are in any different of a spot than we would have been, say, a month ago, as far as Kaprizov returning? Like, is he more or less inclined to see the vision and be on board, or like care whether or not he's making an extra $1 million or $2 million? Like, are we worried going into July?
Well, I think you're always kind of worried with the unknown, right? And like, we haven't talked to Kaprizov in a few months here, right? So it's hard to put word in his mouth and say what he's thinking or what. I think he's more probably frustrated he's not able to skate still, and probably won't be skating until late March. And I think he's a guy who wants to be able to play and be able to be at his best for the playoffs, which will probably be tough, missing a few months of the season, coming back in early April, and being ready to go. So I think a lot still yet to be determined in that case. I think how the season ends up, how healthy he is, like how his feeling is after the season. He put it, I think, to Mike Russo when we did this story in October or so, like, I have 2 years left of my contract. I'm not thinking about that right now. Focus is playing and winning here and winning this season. So maybe having the perspective of having another kind of serious injury it'll help the Wild of like, hey, they're going to offer me a lot of money and this is life-changing money. And, who knows how injuries will happen next season, year after that. Maybe that does help the Wild in terms of signing him to a long-term deal, because, there is some mortality involved when you have these kind of injuries and surgeries. But I think there's a lot left to be written about this year's team, and a lot left to be written about how Kirill fits into that and what he wants to do. So I wouldn't read too much into that necessarily yet, other than the fact that Bill Guerin told me weeks ago that the injuries to Kaprizov aren't making him hold back or worry about signing him in a long-term basis. The injuries like that happen, and he's a machine and he's in incredible shape, and they're not worried about him, this being something that lingers over him for a long period of time. So that's the only thing my takeaway while he's been injured.
For sure. And he's got a little bit more uncertainty around him. Do we have any kind of timelines for Ecker Brodin, or is that still very up in the air too?
That's still up in the air. I know Russo reported that it was broken bone in X leg, and so we don't know when he's going to be back. Brodin blocked the shot. It was weeks ago now. In Colorado, I think it was an Nietzsche shot, and he hasn't played since. And they haven't gotten any timetables for him either. We just know that none of them have scouted to skate yet. And today is March 10th or 11th, and so you have about a month left to go before the end of the regular season. All of a sudden those windows start to tighten a little bit. But in theory, when the injuries happened, didn't think Brodin was going to be out as long as other guys, but no one's given any concrete, answers either way. So we kind of have to be in kind of wait and see mode until we see them actually skating and working with the team before you can build any kind of timetable what they can do.
No, that's fair. Anything else you feel like we need to hit on here for Minnesota Wild, just with where things sit today? I know next week or so we'll get a little bit better picture with those new guys being added in, how things look. Maybe we got updated timetables for guys to return, but anything pressing that you and Russo are kind of keying in on here this week?
Well, I mean, I think this is a crucial stretch homestand, right? Like they're only 7 points out ahead of the 9th place team in the conference. And so that the gap that they had, or the cushion that they had, is dwindling right now to where they have to fight for their playoff spot and seeding down the stretch. These home games are really important. Avalanche, Rangers, Blues, you go on and on. So they can't let this month lapse without them getting into a really rough spot. And issue is hard to score now without, if Rossi and Boldy aren't scoring, it's a really difficult time for them to do that, even though the chances and the looks, expected goals are all there. A lot of the process is there. They're just not scoring, and it's been a very difficult stretch. So a couple things I look for. Ryan Hartman has looked good since he came back from the suspension. They're going to need him to be absolutely at his best game to hold down the fort a little bit as their other top 6 guys are returning. So that was an encouraging sign, at least from my end, watching him play a very involved game. It is kind of disappointing. I'm sure David Juracek's been called up and sat for 4 or 5 games in a row. So I think there is a better way to handle that, where if you're not going to play him, he needs to be playing in Iowa and call somebody else up that can be the insurance there to be in case somebody gets injured. If you're not going to play him, this guy you obviously spend a lot of money and spend a lot of not money, but a lot of assets and draft picks on getting him. You think he's part of your future, and they're best served in taking care of him. So I think that he needs to play. So whether that happens today, tomorrow, whatever, he's not in the lineup against Colorado. So that's something that we'll be watching as well as the homestand goes on. But clearly a very crucial and important time for the Wild as they hit the last stretch of the season.
Let's wrap it up then. Final segment every week here on Fellowship of the Rink. Keyboard Warriors, NHL Hot Takes segment brought to you by our incredible friends, Barrel Theory Beer Company. Again, big homestand, as Joe mentioned. And with that, given the state of the lineup, you might need a couple drinks to help coax you through. You can find their Crowlers at Section 105. And you can get Raindrops, their flagship IPA, on tap in sections 112, 217, and club level 36. Make sure you hit up Barrel Theory for your pregame and postgame festivities as well out on East 7th. Joe, first one here isn't even that much of a hot take now that I've heard literally every other podcast say the same thing that I wrote down over a week ago. But Jack Roslovic wins the trade deadline. Gets a Rolex from Mikko Rantanen to take his number, and Mikko Rantanen's already gone, and he gets his number back. I don't know how you do any better than that. Do you have any other, were there any other like interesting stories that stood out to you in a positive or negative way that you feel like are worth mentioning outside of everything we already hit on for the Central?
Well, that one's tough to beat, from a standpoint of what you got to give up that jersey number for 13 games, I think it was, or something like that. It's incredible. I'm trying to think of other kind of the story for me, like covering the Atlantic Division for so long as the Marchand to the Panthers, like I can't imagine him and Bennett together. Like it's just, and he still calls him a scumbag too. Still, it's pretty funny. But like, and then they play Boston the next game. Like it's just, I know Marchand's out, but that just having covered the division and those teams and seeing Stamkos leave Tampa, and then obviously see the Boston Bruins trade Marchand, like that team is almost completely gutted from the team that won the President's Trophy, 3 years ago?
Crazy.
So it's pretty wild to me. So that was a story that kind of kept me kind of like shaking my head a little bit of like things you don't expect, and then all of a sudden the last before the deadline, and then to watch like a Florida Panthers Lightning first round series, and then watching the Stars and Avs first round series, like
you might get Toronto and Ottawa in the first round. Like there could be some really good first round matchups per usual, and someone big is going to go home.
Yeah, so that's my takeaway from it, and like, so it'll be a absolute tear in the first round series if I see those teams playing against each other. So that's best. Great for the game of hockey. Fun for everybody to watch.
We love it. And my next hot take here, and this one's a personal one, and it's going to sound weird given everything we just talked about here, but Joe, Minnesota Wild win a playoff round this year. And
oh boy.
Here's how, and this is the fun way. This is pure chaos. I think we've kind of all come to the understanding that the Wild are going to be a wild card, right? And there's a team that's battling for first in the Pacific, a team that does not enjoy playing the Minnesota Wild at all. And if the Wild can get Ek, Brodin, and Kaprizov back healthy with, at least maybe 2 weeks to get ramped back up and ready for playoff form, is there a team that the Edmonton Oilers would be less interested in playing than the Minnesota Wild?
Well, they've played the Kings every year, right? So they probably want to play somebody else.
It's worked for them.
It's worked for them. Like I agree, and if there's no great matchups here, if you're the Wild, but if all those guys are healthy and clicking, like it's almost better for them to take the Pacific end of that draw and face either Vegas or Edmonton. Not that they're easy, but that it's just get out of the Dallas, Colorado gauntlet there. Like just take a breath and give it a shot. They'll start on the road again, which they're a really good road team this year. And I know Russo already called all the road games in Vegas if they play Vegas in the first round, and I'll cover the home games. He'll just stay in Vegas the whole time, and I'll cover the home games in St. Paul. Fairness right there. But yeah, I think if that, I think if they're healthy, completely healthy, and the goaltending is there, they can win a first round this year. Like I thought that before in December. If they're completely healthy and the goaltending is there, they can. Now, I'm not saying that this is guaranteed or take it to the bank or bet my house or my child on it, but I just think that if they're completely healthy and can start to play better like they did before in the season, then there's absolutely a shot that they can do that. But I think Wild fans have been hearing that for a long time now. So, but if they play Dallas or Colorado first round, I think it'll be very, very challenging to do that. So it's all about the matchups, right? Even for the best teams that run into some tougher matchups. So that's where I fall on it.
Yeah, it's just crazy that I'm sitting here begging for the team that lost at the very end of Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup. I'm like, please give us that team. Yeah. That we've just had their number. The only defenseman in the league that can stick with McDavid is Brodin. Let's get it. But yeah, very, very. We'll see how things play out. Last one here, Joe, and this one is probably going to pluck a little bit of a nerve, but I was out at Barrel Theory and had two very different perspectives on Lord of the Rings. First was a guy that absolute beauty said every year he and a bunch of friends rent a place, go out, and it's literally just a full weekend of watching the full extended versions of all the movies. Like they love it. They go nuts. Then bartender chimes in and says, yeah, well, Return of the King only got all those Oscars because people felt obligated to.
Well, I would disagree with that one, but I mean, I think it's kind of like that's an easy hot take to disagree with. But I do like the idea because my wife and I do our Lord of the Weekend every year where we watch all the extended versions, back to back to back, which will be different now with the kid to do that. But yeah, I love that idea, which the guys you said already do. But yeah, the Oscars were well deserved, regardless of who earned it or who thought they deserved it or not. So I think those movies, age really well over time, if you think about it. And having been to Hobbiton and having been to New Zealand and having seen kind of where kind of the set was, it's a really cool experience to see how they combined with the technology at the time, the visual elements with actual real life stuff. So anyways, it's kind of like preaching to the choir here, this one.
No, for sure. And I mean, for me, it's more like, if you want to say that, fine. But it's really more because they're like, this is a call. They should have gotten Oscars in the previous two movies. So we definitely have to make sure they get them all here for Return of the King. Like, if that's the angle you want to take, sure. Say they got snubbed earlier and it's a makeup call. But I mean, I don't know how you can say anything negative about this trilogy. If people want to rip on The Hobbit, I'm not going to sit here and defend it. But the original trilogy, I don't know how you do any better. But all right. There's another week of hot takes. Again, thank you to our friends, Barrel Theory Beer Company. Joe, what's coming up here the next week or so? What do you and Russo have planned that everyone needs to be scoping out with the Athletic?
Well, I think just keep following our weekly insiders on Mondays, where we have a column analysis like we did this past Monday. We had a little bit of heat in this one regarding, Bill Guerin's, time to step up and build this contending team. There's no more excuses starting this summer. We'll have some more coverage of this homestand and how it plays into the playoff race. I had a Freddie Goudreau story that ran today, kind of how his bond with his godson really impacted what he wanted to have that charity event on Sunday, raising money for Downs. So that was a really cool, fun story to write. Him and Noah, his nephew there. So we'll combine kind of the features with the analysis of what's gone right, what's gone wrong. And I will be going to Iowa next weekend for my annual pilgrimage for talk about the prospects and what's going on there. So anyone has any questions or topics they want me to hit up, feel free to comment here in the section and everything else, or on Twitter as well.
Awesome. And yes, going off of, the benefits and charity route, everyone this Friday, reminder, get out to 9 Mile Brewing. Among a myriad of different things they'll have at the silent auction, the Wild were generous enough to donate 4 tickets for upcoming Minnesota Wild game against the Seattle Kraken. But even if you don't want to come in and, put any bids in, anything that goes towards beer that night is going to go towards the benefit for Steph. So I'll be out there if anyone wants to come grab a beer with me, talk hockey, BS. Love to see you there. Make sure you support our good friends as well. Barrel Theory throughout this March, full of home games, and of course, Waggle Golf as the weather turns. Golf is on the horizon. Make sure you're looking your best. GetYourWaggleOn.com. Appreciate you all tuning in, and we will be back here next week bringing you even more across, well, probably not Gophers, but definitely diving deeper into the Minnesota Wild.